Welcome to the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast, where we share real life experiences for successful Caribbean property entrepreneurs. Learn about their successes, challenges, and strategies to help you create your plan for financial freedom. Now let's get started.
Quartz is well known as the Caribbean's largest retailer, providing consumers for generations with the very best products to enhance their homes. This year, we bring our expertise to businesses. Quartz Business Solutions will serve small, medium, and large companies with the very best products at the most competitive prices, backed by warranties and after-sales support. Hoteliers, office managers, restaurants, and so many more will now benefit from the extensive procurement network of the Unicomer Group, the parent company of Quartz and Quartz Business Solutions, among many other retail brands. We will provide clients with everything required to complete their establishment or business place, based on their unique specifications and needs. In addition to sourcing the world's most reputable brands, Quartz Business Solution will also ensure that clients receive the most competitive prices, warranties on all with products, and delivery in the shortest possible time. Financing options are also available for purchases. Quartz Business Solutions provides full end-to-end service, from sourcing to delivery and installation, maintenance and repair. We are ready to serve you. Let's partner with you to realize your dream. Quartz Business Solutions, a brand of the Unicomer Group.
Welcome to episode 41 of the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast, the Caribbean's premier, first, and we're not the only. We have some other people in this space trying to share stories with an objective of helping fellow Caribbean nationals improve the quality of life, help others, and achieve financial freedom through property. As always, we say that we have a special guest, and I have not had an episode which I do not believe that I'm actually speaking to somebody special, somebody phenomenal. And to add to that long list of special privilege, it's our privilege, I guess. We'd like to welcome to this episode Mr. Jade Hutchinson from Noah Energy. Welcome to the show, Jade.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks. It's been a while since we've known each other. Probably worked together in the 90s, but it's a pleasure and an honor to be on your podcast today.
I think the 90s were better for you because you look certainly a lot younger than I do. Jade, why don't you tell our audience and listeners a little bit about yourself?
History-wise, again, spent I spent some time again working in Vanslum at Cable and Wireless. Then left St. Lucia, went to the UK to study design. But out there, I always felt that I needed to come back home. There's a lot more we could be doing in St. Lucia, and especially with the use of technology. So came back home, and one thing that really interests me was how with all the changes in the world, how we as a country remain relevant and stay ahead, so we don't lose ourselves in the way the world's moving. So energy was and is still a key aspect of that. So how much we spend on energy, how much we use energy, and a couple of friends of mine, we sat together and they encouraged me to jump into that business. So with my training in design, with my connections I've made, we were able to formulate a business plan and formulate a business model around energy. And over the last few years, we've been executing that.
Okay. Jed, what would you say were some of the key areas from your first degree in design that you transferred to this new business? And how is it helping you?
Well, first and foremost, as a designer, you're drilled into you that people come first, right? So it's really about listening and trying to understand the challenges that your audience or your customer or the person you're speaking to, try to understand where they're coming from. So one of the key things we brought to that business was really try to understand what our customers actually need. So one thing, even when I speak to customers today, I always tell them the first thing we do is listen. We listen to what they actually want, what the challenges are, even before we formulate a plan around how we go about solving these challenges or how we go about implementing that solar energy. One key thing is ensuring that the solution that you present matches the actual challenge that the customer wants. Beyond that, I spent a good time doing graphics, so a lot of my presentations and my graphics tend to be praised when I deliver them. So I am quite proud of that.
It's amazing the importance of graphics and editing, that skill set, the prominence it plays right now with social media and visual communication. I didn't want
Mhm,
to introduce your business at the onset, in the first introduction of the show, because I wanted it to evolve. And the reason for that is because we've spoken about the energy movement in the Caribbean, solar power
mhm,
energy, photovoltaic business. And now more than ever, Jade, I think it's important to bring to the fore and to help educate and enlighten people about this industry and the movement. I will tell you, I got a not so pleasant message from one of my tenants today. They're American, and they typically run the split unit air condition system, for 24
mhm,
hours. So the living room is on 24 hours. And increasingly over the last 3 months, problems arise, and
mhm,
they've required servicing. Obviously, as a landlord, I have to pay for it. I don't pay for the electricity bill, but I have to pay for it. And that message I got today was around the high cost of electricity for the bill
mhm,
last month, and I was told like it was more than $800. Now, mind you, my bill last month where I live, just my son and myself, was in the region of 650 EC dollars, and that's very
wow.
high for persons outside of St. Lucia and listeners. A typical electricity bill for a household, even with air conditioned units, split units that you may use maybe at night when it's very hot, is under $300, so just about 100 US. So now to have a bill that's 300 US, it is exorbitant and cause for alarm. Um, the tenants have made a request for me to change their air conditioning system and for me to invest in more energy efficient systems, which is a capital cost,
Mhm,
a cost for me. So now I have to invest in that. And what do I do with my existing units? My units are still good. And landlords, across the Caribbean hearing this is not necessarily good. And before I hand over the mic to you, Jade, I will tell you that you and I have had this discussion about people like me with multiple units, landlords, um, to invest in a photovoltaic system, solar power system, and I haven't. And the main reason, that I haven't is because of what I perceive to be the high cost. The discussion we're going to have today is around dispelling that myth, and to helping all of us understand better the benefits of it. So, Jade, I'm going to tell you that, say I have 4 billions or 5 billions now. I don't have it. I'm thinking about it. What do I need to know? What I've been told is that it costs on average about $35,000 for one house. So maybe a two-bedroom
mhm,
apartment is going to be about 30,000 EC dollars, which is about what? That's 14, 13,000 US or 12,000 US.
mhm,
And that for me is prohibitive. I wonder if it's worth the investment, especially since as a landlord, I don't pay the electricity bills for my long-term rentals. However, for property investors doing short-term rentals, Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, we pay the electricity bills. And there are lots of our clients short-term who put the air conditioning unit on in the morning and leave it on for the entire day. So let's say you charge 200 US a night for 5 nights. That's 1,000 US. I have received a bill for 300 US for that period. So Jade, should I be afraid about the cost of the system, what are some of the things that I need to look for or to ask if I'm interested in moving from my traditional electricity to contacting you and Noah Energy for a new system?
Okay, let's start at the beginning. You mentioned the cost of electricity, right? In St. Lucia, on average, we pay 3 times more than your clients would be paying in the US. So in right now, we're paying about 30 to 40 US cents. The last time I checked, for commercial property, the cost of electricity was about anywhere from $1.16, $1.01 to about $1.10. So yeah, and for residential, it was closer to 90 cents, just over 90 cents. So we're paying almost 3 times more for our electricity than you say your clients would. So that's the first thing to understand. Secondly, in terms of the investment, actually investing in energy efficiency is actually a good way to start. So if you do have, say, you move from a traditional air conditioning unit to an inverter unit, you'll be saving about 40% of your energy cost for that unit. Also, if you move from, say, halogens to LEDs, you'll be saving closer to 90% of that energy cost, right? Um, Another thing some buildings do is they have smart systems. So, for example, when no one's in the house, there's no movement, the units can go off. So you can or someone leaves the house, the system shuts down, and then you save money. So when someone gets closer, it can come back on. So these are the simple energy efficiency tools you could use. When it comes to air conditioning units and lighting, you can say that payback is anywhere from half a year to 2 years. So within that time, the investment you've made would pay itself back, right? So that's a very quick turnaround in terms of energy efficiency. We always advise our clients to look at the energy efficiency opportunities first because then it reduces the capital cost of the solar system. So the lower your energy consumption, the lower the smaller size of the system you require, therefore the lower the capital cost. The way we go about dealing with solar is that we size a solar system to match your energy consumption, right? So there, at least in today, where we do have, how do I call it, a one-to-one. So every unit you give to the grid, you get a unit back. We can come to that in a little bit. For that sort of method, it's best to match your solar system to the energy consumption that you have. All right. So that's the primitive begin. That's where we start. So that's why I tell you we listen. We need to understand what your energy bill is, what your consumption is, whether you need some sort of storage systems. Right. So these are the things we need to ask. Then, once we understand the size of the system that you're looking for, we need to understand whether your building is fit for taking that solar. So one, your roof, ensuring that your roof can take the weight of the solar. Two, the amount of space you need. So sometimes in St. Lucia, a lot of our residential buildings may not have, may not be structurally sound to take solar, or the shape of the roof sometimes not allow you to put enough panels to offset your energy cost. All right. But then once we know that, we can design the system and price it out. Now, you've said $35,000. Now, that $35,000 is probably because of the amount of, because the size, because the amount of energy you consume. So $35,000 system today would probably be over 5 kilowatts. So generally, when it comes to solar, the capital cost, I look at anywhere from $4 to $6 per watt. So then we're looking at for a 5 kilowatt system, which would generate enough electricity to cover about a $500 to $800 bill, probably more, depending on obviously orientation and all the factors. That would be closer to anywhere from $22,000 to $25,000 when you look at the pricing. But that's just an average rough cost for that. We need to understand more details about how it's mounted, where it's mounted, and more details about your building, how far the runs or the cables need to travel to get to your um, electrical panels, etc.
Two things. We started the
Hmm.
conversation without articulating that, there's a new bill and there's existing bill, because I think that our conversations are practical conversations. Because somebody coming
Hmm.
to you now, more than likely, no, I imagine the people that that the people who we speak to on our podcast, a person interested in property
Hmm.
investing, people who probably are property investors, people who are landlords. So more likely they would
Hmm.
have it ready. You asked me, you said you were going to start from the beginning. Let's start from the beginning in terms of measuring the electricity output. You know the
Hmm.
metric for that. What are the typical um, terms we need to understand? So we just know that's power. So to just go back, just to start from the beginning for our audience again. Okay, typically how much power is generated, how much power is used, and a typical system. How is that produced, and what goes back into the grid? Because a lot of people don't understand that. I wanted to wait
Okay.
until we got to like what concessions that you may have and what arrangements
Hmm.
some Caribbean electricity companies have with persons who go into that area. But let's step back, just give me a
Okay.
general summary of the area and of the discipline so everyone listening can understand what we're talking about.
Okay. So on your electricity bill, all right, you pay for a kilowatt of electricity, and that price varies. Over, I mean, I must admit, from in last year, just when the war started, prices jumped about 30%. So a lot of people were surprised with that jump in cost from about 80 cents to about $1. What you do, you can from what on you what happens is the utility sends electricity to you. It comes into your meter, and for every unit or every kilowatt that you use, the meter turns and then they register that, right? That electricity used in your building, right? So over the course of the month, they count how many units you use, and then they charge you a price for that. Okay, that's the first thing. Once you put solar on, what happens is they change your meter, so now you can send electricity both ways. They measure all the electricity that comes to your building. They measure any excess electricity that you produce that goes out, and then they give you a credit based on how many units you send out versus how many units you absorb.
Okay, pause. So let's explain clearly for our
Mhm.
listeners what you mean when you say what comes in. So solar gets the sun's rays, goes to the systems, and generates energy.
Mhm.
Explain that.
Yeah. So it comes from, okay, so the panels collect the sunlight, turns it to direct current, DC. That then goes to an inverter. An inverter then turns that into an to alternating current, which is what we use, the AC current. And then at this rate, we can self-consume, which means that from the inverter, some it goes to your electrical panels, and then if you have anything on, it will then use that electricity first, and the excess will then go back to the grid. All
Okay,
right, that's the first
so
thing.
tell yeah, so tell our audience a little bit about about the panels, because as you said earlier on, you typically would spec each design for the
Mhm.
customer. Just give us a sense of number of panels, how much, how you set up the panels in terms of direction for sun rays, and that kind of design, and what you can expect each panel on a typical sunny day to. Is it not just attract and generate, attract or can
Use.
conduct? Sorry.
Okay, so right now it's our regulations are, we're still going through building the regulations, but as per the current regulations through the National Utilities Regulatory Commission, you can export up to 5 kilowatts of electricity for residential property and 25 for a commercial. So therefore, at that size, you can then connect to the grid, right? Typically, of residential properties, that 5 kilowatts could be anywhere from 10, well, let's say 9 to 10, 11 panels. So the panels have a certain wattage, right? So, and that could be anywhere from, today, the high watt panels would be anywhere from 400 to 600 watts, all right? So you just count how many watts. So a 5 kilowatt means if a 500 watt panel, you'd use 10 panels. Simple as that,
And
right?
roughly
And then,
how wide, how long and how heavy is each panel?
So correctly, the panels I use, they're about 3 feet 7 inches roughly, and about 6 to 7 feet tall. So about that. Um, so you can imagine that if you're looking for a 5 kilowatt system, on average, you're looking for about anywhere from 150, well, no, 160 square feet to about 200 square feet to 50 square feet to allow you to put that panel on your roof. So yeah, I do those maths, so I remember these things. So that's the amount of
And tell us
space you
about
need on your roof.
what
Orientation
are the importance
wise,
of angling? Yeah, orientation.
so the best orientation is obviously south, facing south, but that doesn't mean because that way you'll get the most generation from your system. But again, we're close to the equator, so the drop off isn't great unless you have a very steep roof. But
I always
anyway,
say
the best,
I always say about north facing, but why south? The
Mhm.
sun rises in the east and sets in the west.
In the
What
west,
about the
yes.
southern exposure gets more sun rays?
Think about it. If your roof orientation is east-west, therefore in the morning you'd have best sun on the east side, and then there'll be less sunlight on the west side. Same thing in the afternoon. But if you do it on the south facing, then you have that sunlight going across for the whole day. The difference and the reason why we prefer south is because the majority of the year, technically, the sun is south of us. Since we're at 14 degrees north, on average, the best angle would be 14 degrees, 14 to 20 degrees of the roof angle. But that said, the best angle for hurricanes swells would be steeper angles. So to manage hurricanes, if we're building roofs to better hurricane our hurricane resilience. But again, we're in the Caribbean, so we get about 4 to 5 to 7 hours sunlight on average for the year. Good sunlight that can generate solar.
I mean, for the day.
Well, sorry, for the day, over the course of a year, yeah.
Okay,
And the average for the day
okay,
is
okay.
5 to 7 hours.
Before I interrupted you, I was going to ask about how we fasten the panels on our roofs because I know a lot of our listeners, those who would have commented or asked questions about solar energy, the main question they ask, apart from the savings and the cost, obviously, is will my roof leak after you install it, and how safe is it for hurricanes?
So, first of all we to install solar panels on your roof, you install something called racking that will allow the solar panels to sit on top of that, and then obviously you would secure it down. The racking, what we call the feet for the racking, they're designed to prevent water from going through. So they actually engineered them once installed correctly, that water will not go through the feet. So and you've got racking for different types of roofs. So if you have a standing seam roof, you can get specific racking for that, specific connections for that. If you have the corrugated roofs, like what we most people have, you can get that. If you use clay tiles or slate or any of these sorts of more unique roofing material, then we could get specific flashing or connections for that. Once the panels are secured to your roof, actually, before we get that, before we secure the panels or when choosing that racking, we determine what wind speed to resist. So we would design the systems for whatever wind speed. So most times we design them for anywhere between 130-mile-an-hour winds to 170-mile-an-hour winds. So that's Cat 3 to Cat 5 hurricanes. Therefore, in the majority of cases, if your roof is installed, solar panels are installed properly, your roof would probably leave your building before the solar panels. One of the challenges we have in the Caribbean is a lot of roofs are not tied down to the building. So you generally have, if you worry about your panels, your roof would probably fly off before the panels leave your roof because they're secured.
But
Actually, I would say in some cases, the weight of the panels actually help keep your roof down
But to be
a
clear,
bit more.
so for standing seam with that unique straight line down the center of the zinc, and I can see how racking could be fastened easily on it.
Yeah.
Are you saying for the normal corrugated, galvanized kind of wavy roofs,
Mhm.
they it does not is not drilled through? Are you saying it's not, or it is?
Yes. Well, yeah, so depending on the roof, it's sized, for example, on a normal corrugated one with the flat tops. The ideal place to install is on the top, the flat area. And then when you drill through, there are rubbers and all the sealing agents that actually on there. Then you drill into the purlins or into your rafters to ensure it stays securely. What happens as well if you when you install on that ridge is most times the water doesn't actually get to the ridge. The water goes into the troughs. So therefore you do have a bit of extra protection. However, if you'd had to install in troughs, the the feet or the connections come with rubber feet, and they're designed to prevent water from entering the roof.
While I'm on that, one last question on the panels and the installation. Is our insurance compromised at all with the installation? Does that have any effect on our insurance, on the validity of our insurance?
No, actually, most times you add your panels to your home insurance. So you can add your panels to your home insurance. There'll be a slightly increased premium, but then that's doable. The insurance companies do allow you to add that. So it doesn't compromise your insurance at all.
Okay, so Jill, we understand our starting point, specking out
Hmm.
your system design based on your needs. We understand the what how electricity is generated and charged. We understand how it is conducted, stored, used, and the rules around it for at least some islands where you allowed it. I think you said
Hmm.
5 kilowatts, and everything else you sell it back to the grid. So people listening right now, when how easy is it to make the application with the local electricity company to get your system, to get the meter, and what's the typical kind of process for you getting back your credit?
Okay, so there are two things. Just let's start with different islands have different interconnections and different rules and regulations around electricity. So in St. Lucia, we have a one-to-one where you can export and you can self-consume. In countries like Grenada, you can't self-consume, you have to export everything. In countries like Dominica, there is a limit on how much you can self-consume, and then for every unit you export, then you get actual credits and cash amounts for that. Now, in St. Lucia, we will change at some point to a more tariff, but for now we're not. So the process, and that's typical for a lot of countries, is obviously you contact your solar provider, they would then come and do the audits. The audit will help them understand everything we just spoke about, how much electricity you're using, what your building roof is like, how much solar you need, etc. Then obviously the agreements between you and your company, depending on the solar provider, that process might differ. But once they've sized the system and then they would design your system for that roof. And excuse me, once they've designed that system, they prepare all the documentations for permitting. That would include things like the single line drawings, the layouts, any approvals from you, and filling the application. There'll be a cost to that. In solution, they've increased the cost to $200 per residential and 500 for commercial properties. We can talk about the reasoning for that and the whole process of that process later on. But the application in St. Lucia goes to the National Utilities Regulatory Commission. In some other countries, equal to the regulator or the utility, depending on how that's set up, to approve that installation. In St. Lucia, once the NERC, as you call them, receives the application, they review it, they send it to the utility for approval. Once you get your approval, then you're allowed to install. You get your permit, it's a nice sheet of paper, you go ahead, you install your system. Once it's installed, you need to get approval from the Ministry of Infrastructure. That approval determines they check whether your building is up to code. So I always recommend to my clients that even before you install, ensure your building is up to code, electrical codes, the correct codes for today. once they've passed that, you get your electrical certificate. You can take all of that to the utility, right? Because now the system's installed, you get all your documentation from infrastructure. You go to utility to get what we call interconnection approval. So you sign an agreement with the utility to allow you to export or interconnect. All right, that's if you're interconnecting. Obviously, if you want to go off grid, that's a different story. And at that point, instantly, there's a cost to that. It's about $180. So you sign that agreement. The utility then comes in to change your meter from the standard meter to a bi-directional meter. So now they can measure both the electricity you're taking in and the electricity that's leaving. So both ways. And then based on the regulations and the tariffs and the structure of that agreement, that national structure of electricity, then you can start to save. In St. like I said, it's for every unit you export, you get a credit of a unit onto your electricity bill. So that's applied to your electricity bill. So one of my clients actually went from $3,000 to minus $600. So then he was able to put in an additional AC unit.
What I'm thinking of, Jade, is I'm hoping that this entire process, once you come to me, you spec it out. What I would have to do is
Mhm,
just to ensure my building is up to electrical code. To me,
mhm.
with the most humble and utmost respect, once I've done that and I hire you, I don't want to be doing all of that. I want you to take care of all of those processes for me. Is that how it's done?
So yeah, so yeah, on my end, at least for me as a business, we guide you through everything. We help you fill out the forms. We take you to the NUC. We ensure that that process is taken care of. At the end of the installation, we'd go to utility to ensure that everything's paid for, and then then you will have to sign the agreement with the utility. We don't, but at least with my last client, the utility was able to sit down, go to their homes to get it signed. Um, if they may not do that for everybody else, but if I could, I would collect the application and deliver it to you, have you sign it, and then return it. Oh, I try to make sure my clients firstly understand what they're getting into. Secondly, that there's no additional stress. I know they're busy people just like everybody else, so we make sure that all the process we I don't say handhold, but we take care of the process from the time from permitting um, from permitting to installation to all the agreements signed to after sales. So if a customer wants, we can go in an after sales agreement where we also maintain the system, which we can get into a bit more details later on.
What is the typical
And
time frame for the entire process, the application process? That's after you spec out the design for them, they sign a contract with you. What's the typical time frame for the application process for the regulators and then the procurement process for you?
so on paper, the NUC says that they take 3 days to review the application, which then they then send to utility. But there's no on in the current regulations, there is no timeline for that. In my experience, that permit process could take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to 3 months. So at least, yeah, that's just that part of the process, which could be difficult since there is no actual times written in the current regulations. My last client took 2 weeks, which was actually 3 weeks, which was actually pretty quick. My first client took 3 months. So that approval process could take some time. In terms of the procurements, not many solar companies keep stock because obviously prices change pretty quickly or pretty often with solar. So we then buy panels and stuff on request, and it depends where you get your panels from. So if you get your panels from the US, it could take anywhere from a month or two from the US or the UK. Or if, like me, where I buy directly from my manufacturer, and again, I ensure I spec tier one panels, which is top quality panels, and I ensure that we get inverters which are certified and to meet all the specifications. But I buy my panels directly from the manufacturers out of China. Again, a lot of panels, if not most equipment, is made in China, but they are top quality panels, and that could take about 3 months based on the shipping. but the installation for a system would take anywhere from for a home system, for residential, it would take about a couple days, a day or two. For a commercial system at 25 kilowatts, it should take about a week to 2 weeks. Yeah, we work with partners to ensure that the system is installed correctly. We have electricians and the right designers to ensure that everything is done properly and up to spec. So we do work with qualified electricians and to ensure that the system is designed and installed properly.
All right. Tell us about affordability. How I'm interested in a
Mhm,
system, but I don't necessarily have the capital to fork out 40,000 EC dollars right now. But I understand the
mhm.
benefits I get from my reduced electricity bill. I understand the benefits of having a credit on my account. I understand that also the system will pay back itself within, you said, within 2 years. Tell us how I go about getting access to that capital.
Okay, so let us start. First of all, the energy efficiency would pay back in about 2 years. The solar system pays back between 3 and 5 years based on the size. All right, and that's just a rough estimate. In terms of affordability, what I would say, first of all, when you're thinking about it, some people are thinking, you know what, maybe I shouldn't install my system today. I should wait till the prices drop. One thing I'll say is the reduction in cost of a solar system compared to the savings you'd have over that time. Let's assume it's a no-brainer to install today. So a typical 25 kilowatt system, the rate of the rate at which the panels would decrease, you would probably make you probably over a year or two, you probably save anywhere from, well, over a year about $30,000 or more could be. So you'll save more if you install it now than to wait for the panels or the system price to drop. That's just a no-brainer. In terms of affordability, recently government took off the VAT on the solar system. So if you pay VAT, then it doesn't matter. But for most residential people, if you have a VAT, for example, businesses usually can offset VAT, so that it may not affect some of the registered VAT businesses. But for residential customers, that was a decrease anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 on a system. All right, so that's one. In terms of not having the upfront capital to do that, the different banks offer loans on for solar, specific loans for solar systems. I know for sure Bank of St. Lucia have a program. This Development Bank has a program. Republic Bank has a program. So
Yeah,
all
we
banks
did talk we
usually
did talk about we did talk about other banks. We didn't talk about Bank of St. Lucia. So I can confirm that Bank of St. Lucia offers you um, an attractive package for a solar power PV system. Continue.
okay. Well, my bank might not be very happy with me for not plugging them, but yes, I do have relationships with multiple banks and multiple financing options. So, but all banks today do have some sort of solar financing option, and that makes it very attractive because now you can pay your bill back over time, and therefore you save money. That these loans could go anywhere from 5 to 7 years. Some banks maybe offer a bit longer, but that then and the interest rates are usually lower. Depending on the bank, you can obviously find good interest rates. So yeah, my client actually got his solar when through another bank, not Bank of St. Lucia. So I won't mention that, but he did get it, and at the time he did get a partial grant for his loan. So that's why I say you look around and you see the sort of options you have. For residential customers, most banks would offer, well, I should say most banks. I know some banks offer unsecured loans for these um for these systems because it's not. I know they offer, I think it's up to either 30 or 50,000 dollars unsecured loans for solar.
One, Jed, one of the key issues I've heard with the typical system designed for residential customers, and even I guess for me as a landlord with multiple units, is the issue of batteries or batteries, as we say in the Caribbean. A lot, what my understanding, a lot of the systems, the prohibitive cost of batteries would mean that most of the design solutions do not come with batteries. So you might be able to
Mhm.
use power only for what, like 6 hours, 5 hours, but the real storage value of that power to reuse for a longer period of time, it's not typically built in those affordable solutions. Can you shed some light on the battery issue?
So battery, let's put it, battery prices have been dropping every year for the last 20 years, and they'll keep on dropping. So over time, they will become more affordable. Um, One challenge we have, again, is the cost of the batteries. So at least in today's environment, the cost of batteries could be prohibitive to some people. But I wouldn't say that with the way our, how should I call it, the way our current interconnection is, I advise my clients they don't need to put in batteries right away because we do get a really good exchange rate for our electricity. As we get into tariffs where there is a cost well, the cost to export and the cost to use electricity from the grid, there's a difference in that cost. Batteries may actually come into play. And really, I mean, as much as I'm a solar person, I must give the utility props that they usually it's a very stable utility, one of the best in the Caribbean, in St. Lucia. So we usually don't have outages. But for places where you have outages, that's when you could then start to see the value of batteries. Either you have outages or you have a difference between your well, export and import utility prices. Now, for me, I would tell my clients, you know what, you could you could prep yourself for batteries by using the right inverter. Obviously, you install that, and then when you're ready to install your batteries, you would. But batteries in today's and that may change soon, but in today's environment, the price is prohibitive, and because the utility is very stable, they may not be the best option. And you only need batteries when you only feel the need for batteries when you have outages or when you will start to have that difference. So you can plan and prep for it, but it may not be a necessity today.
So for clarity, for our listeners and for myself, so the panels that you would have, it will store the energy, conduct it, and reuse it. Um, and what I understand from what you said is that you use what's in the panels first, what's generated first, before you use the mains, right?
Yeah, so there's a few changes to terminology. The
Yes, okay,
panels
tell us.
generate the panels generate electricity. They don't store it, but they generate electricity, and then and the inverter turns it into usable electricity, which you use in your house. And yes, because it goes back to your electrical panel, your main panel, that's then used by your house, right? So at any given time, you can tell how much is being used. It would generally use that solar first because if you do have high consumption, electricity will move to the consumption first. And during the day, for most residential homes, during the day, no one's really home, so you're not using as much electricity. That electricity is exported to the grid, and you get your credits based on that. At night, when you don't have electricity, when your solar system is not operational, you draw electricity from the grid. So you'll never notice that your solar system isn't generating. So then it offsets and you get your credits, etc. But you don't you in today's environment you wouldn't notice that once it's connected to the grid, you wouldn't notice that you wouldn't have any issues with your system going down unless the grid goes down.
What would you say as we begin wrapping up? What would you say have been some of the
Mhm.
key challenges that you've had as the founder of Noah Energy in implementing the new culture of PV systems in the Caribbean?
You've mentioned one. A lot of clients find the upfront cost prohibitive. But over the last few years, that has changed. Like I said, 3, 4 years ago, I expected cost for my client was $150,000. Today, that dropped $30,000. All right, 4 years on, the price has dropped, so it's becoming more affordable. The regulations are also a problem. So in St. Lucia, we're still trying to get the right regulatory framework, and there are caps and limits for export and implement. And again, depends who you speak to and how they word things. There are caps as to how much solar you can actually put as a residential customer or as a commercial customer. And for a lot of commercial properties, that cap is very low and it won't allow them to offset enough electricity. So for say hotels, for some hotels, it's more beneficial to use that for marketing because the returns would be higher than electricity costs because the systems are so small. For residential, for some customers, it makes sense because like you said, for yourself and property owners where you really do have high electricity bills, that's fine. If your bill is under $300, maybe less, sometimes you know what? It doesn't make sense to put electricity on your bill on your building because the paybacks are so long that you may as well keep paying the current electricity rates. So I'm very honest with my clients. If your bill is $100, $200, you know what? The investment may not be worth it for you as a customer at that electricity cost. So these are some of the challenges. So one is obviously the capital cost, two are the regulations, and the regulations have been a challenge because if we really want to have that resilience, if we really want to have our cost of electricity come down to make our country more productive, because this isn't really about the environment. I mean, we don't really, I mean, yes, there is environmental impacts, but in the Caribbean, our environmental impacts are very minimal. So it's really about cost for us. And if we do want to reduce our costs, if we do want to get more resilient, we need to allow people to use more electricity. And to do that, we need the right regulations. And I'm also a member of the Alliance for Green Innovation and Technology. And what we are is a body of um, energy and all the technology companies where we're trying our best to lobby for regulatory change and proper, what's that called, regulatory change and any other ways that we can help that transition. So we're working with the idea is to work with governments, to work with the regulator, to work with the utility to get the best framework for implementation or utilization of electricity, well, of that transition to renewables. So regulations and costs have always been the biggest factor with that transition. And
Uh,
awareness. So that's why I like being on the show because we need to raise that awareness that you know what, people can install solar. It is there. It can save, and companies like mine are willing to help them reduce their electricity burden.
so Jade, before we leave, my final question, and all of my listeners would expect me to ask it. Why should homeowners, landlords,
Mhm.
and property investors choose Noah Energy?
Noah Energy, we're an end-to-end business. We make sure our customers are taken care of. Again, everyone, if you can do solar, but you have to do it right. You want to ensure that the system lasts for 25 years, so you need to ensure it's designed properly, it's installed properly, the right equipment's used, and that you so your investment can also so your investment is worth that. So you worth an investment. One thing we also do is provide that maintenance service. So if you have any issues, anything goes down, we are able to come in and work with you to ensure it's fixed and your system is running optimally. We offer a package. We can always, if a customer does call, we offer a package where we check your system at least once a year, clean them if necessary, and just give you a peace of mind that you know what, my investment my investment is working for me for the future because in the end it's a big investment for most people and you want to ensure that you're taken care of and you're in the right hands. So no energy is there to ensure customers are comfortable and happy from the time they decide, from the time they're trying to figure out whether they need solar to years after the solar system has been installed.
So after hearing and watching this episode, and I figure I'm interested. One, how do I get ready? And two, how do I get in contact with No Energy?
Well, first and foremost, how do you get ready? The first thing you do is just contact No Energy. We'll help you get through that process. You can get me on hello@noah-energy.com, or you can give me a call. It's seven. I can try to just give my number out here, but you can give me a call on 758-723-8578. But no, but drop me an email at hello@noah-energy.com. Hopefully, and you put that somewhere in the captions or on the screen so everyone can see it. But again, we're happy to help and ensure that everyone is making the right investment.
Trust these industrial designers to be giving us instructions about how we should, put tags on our screen. But no, Jay, thank you very much for coming on the show. I felt it was important as a property investor for us to start this conversation. We're very late. Most islands and most countries are way ahead of St. Lucia and the Caribbean. Barbados is way ahead of us. So is Jamaica. And forget about the US, UK, first world. We're just happy that at least we're having the conversation. And the more persons who start investing in green energy and start one, saving the planet, but two, and we can admit this, a lot of us, it's about the impact on our bottom line because we do this so we can own our time and improve the quality of our life while we help others. The earlier we get to dispel some of the myths and understand the truth and the real value, especially the payback on the investment, as well as the monthly savings, I think the more likely this awareness you spoke about that is lacking is going to improve, and we're going to see some action. So you've been listening to another episode of the Caribbean Property Investing Podcast, where we try to bring to you the key issues and topics that impact the real estate industry in the Caribbean, especially those that deal primarily with the bottom line and help us through this journey to financial freedom. So until next time, remember what we say. Check out us on IG, on Facebook, and at CaribbeanPropertyInvesting.com. Spread the word. Tell people about the podcast. Share it. Subscribe. Until next time, remember, everyone needs somewhere to live. You might as well own yours.
Quartz is well known as the Caribbean's largest retailer, providing consumers for generations with the very best products to enhance their homes. This year, we bring our expertise to businesses. Quartz Business Solutions will serve small, medium, and large companies with the very best products at the most competitive prices, backed by warranties and after-sales support. Hoteliers, office managers, restaurants, and so many more will now benefit from the extensive procurement network of the Unicomer Group, the parent company of Quartz and Quartz Business Solutions, among many other retail brands. We will provide clients with everything required to complete their establishment or business place based on their unique specifications and needs. In addition to sourcing the world's most reputable brands, Quartz Business Solution will also ensure that clients receive the most competitive prices, warranties on all with products, and delivery in the shortest possible time. Financing options are also available for purchases. Quartz Business Solutions provides full end-to-end service, from sourcing to delivery and installation, maintenance and repair. We are ready to serve you. Let's partner with you to realize your dream. Quartz Business Solutions, a brand of the Unicomer Group.
Congratulations and thank you for tuning in to the Caribbean's first property investing podcast. We want to help Caribbean people create wealth and achieve financial freedom through property investing. Our show provides general advice based on personal experiences and is for educational purposes only. For more information, resources, and past episodes, visit us at CaribbeanPropertyInvesting.com. Remember to click the subscribe button so you never miss a show. Let's go.